The book. I thought I would give it to you real quick because it's just a great story, but I thought there were better stories. I had to pick. Here's one that was left on the editing room floor. Bomber pilot, 20 years old. After what he had seen by 1944, he felt like he was 80 years old. His target on the missions were 2 radio installations in the mountains, the tiny island north of Iwo Jima. In those days, there was no such thing as a guided missile or a smart bomb. You had to put the target in your iron sights. You had to fly straight through all of the flak, all of the gunfire, everything that the enemy could throw at you. And at the last critical second, you would release your bombs, and they had to be on target with your iron sights. The minute the bombing ran began, the enemy set up a solid wall of anti-aircraft shells. He had his eyes fixed on the target. Pilot couldn't see the other crews struggling to bail out of their planes as they were hit, spiraling down in flames. His plane suddenly lurched and shuddered, fatally wounded. Still, he held the course. As the cockpit filled with smoke, the critical second came. On target! Are we on target? He released the bombs. Direct hit. Only then did the pilot's thoughts turn to the survival for himself and his crew. As the engine fire spread, the pilot managed to fly several miles over open water before finally giving the order for his crew to abandon the plane. He was the last out. He clawed his way out of the cockpit and fell onto the wing, pulled the ripcord of his chute, and smashed into the tail as he was torn free, and so was the tail of his plummeting plane. The next thing he knew, he was in the churning water, dazed and pulling himself into a survival raft. In the aftermath, all of the other airmen on the mission died at the hands of the enemy. Their treatment was so brutal that several of their captors were tried and hanged after the war was over. But this pilot survived. He returned to active duty. And when all was said and done, he had flown 58 combat missions. He was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross, 3 air medals, and the Presidential Unit Citation. When he returned home, he married his sweetheart, graduated college in 2.5 years. He was the captain of his baseball team at his university, and the first ever college World Series that he won. Later, he excelled in business, then in politics. Ultimately, this lone survivor did something that everybody knows. Stu, can you name the lone survivor?
No, I don't know.
Can you name the lone survivor?
George H.W. Bush.
George H.W. Bush.
For 12 other true and untold stories from America's past, pick up a copy of Glenn's new book, Miracles and Massacres, True and Untold Stories of the Making of America.
No, you wrecked it.
In bookstores everywhere
it's
now.
Okay. You
or
wrecked
visit
it.
glennbeck.com/miracles for details.
You asked. But did you really?
Yeah, no.
You can't ask me
Where did you
questions
figure
like
it out?
that.
Where'd you figure it out?
Well,
In 1944, right at the beginning.
I knew things. I know things.
That's why I left out Yale University, because I thought that would, that would seal the deal.
Yeah.
But I had never heard that story told that way.
It's pretty cool.
Jack
Pretty
Henderson
great
had written that story, and everybody was writing stories and pitching them and going, Glenn, great story. I got a great story here. And that's just, that's the synopsis of the story. But I didn't think it was good enough, and there would be a lot of people that would know that story. The 12 stories that we selected, most of which you think you know, but you really don't know. And they are all told as if you are in the cockpit, or if you're on the ground, or wherever you are. It is told in a way, and I think the best story in this to prove this point is the story on Vietnam, a story that I knew no one would read. No one would read. I have no interest. In fact, I challenged the guys when they said, we want to tell a story about the quintessential Vietnamese massacre. And I said, nobody will read it. I won't even read it. I'm not interested. It's one of those things that I really want to know the truth, but I don't want to look into it. I hate that period of time in our country's history. So I challenged them, and they came back with have you read it yet, Pat? Have you read that?
It's awesome.
It's awesome. It is absolutely awesome.
Yeah.
And
so good.
it is one of the best chapters in the book.
It is.
You'll race to the end of that chapter. And we've just taken a spoonful of sugar and we've made the medicine go down. And it is really fantastic. By the way,